Hey everybody, good evening. I see a bunch of you have gathered already. The Rex, I see you're here. Good. I saw some other people drop into chat. I'm Ethan Evans, and I'm excited tonight to have my good friend and guest Albert Kim, he's head of student recruiting for the Americas at Amazon. And so we're going to talk some about his expertise. But before we go into that, I'll just say everybody welcome. And remember, because tonight we're going to be talking about Amazon, and we're both Amazon employees, I still want to be clear we're not speaking for Amazon. And Ojo Ford, thank you for the Twitch Prime subscription. I appreciate that. Shadow Fox, our veteran lead moderator, thank you for the host. And we're very happy to have everyone here. So looking forward to talking to you. But we aren't representing Amazon officially when we talk tonight. That said, Albert and I can both talk about Amazon student recruiting. So if you're not a student, why should you stay? Why should you care? Couple things. We're going to talk about recruiting generally and the world of getting a job in 2019, 2020. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the massive scale of finding a job in the modern world. Today, and we'll go more into this, Amazon has 25,000 open jobs on the website today. So that's 25,000 positions open right now. About half of those are in Amazon Web Services, and half of them are spread everywhere else. So as Asset says here, sit back and enjoy. Relive Sports has changed his name. That's Chalupa Whale. It's good to have him here. And so that's some stuff we'll be sharing. So that's a good reason to hang around and learn. And if you are interested in how to get a job at Amazon, an internship or a student job, we're going to go right into that. And then we'll talk more about recruiting generally. As you know, we always take your questions. Our Q&A extension is up and open. Put your questions in, vote on questions. Everybody here should know the drill by now, but if you're new, we have an extension on Twitch where you can put in a question, you can upvote an existing question, and we answer questions based on those votes. If for any reason you can't find the extension, the mods just popped up the link. And you can use that link to ask a question through any web browser. So Cyberjourno, thank you for the Twitch Prime. I don't know you unless you've recently changed your handle, but I'm pleased to meet you. It's a good time for us to say join our Discord. I interact with people in our Discord and get to know them. So that's how I know all the regulars on the channel. So with that, enough of that. Albert, I've given your title. Introduce yourself.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here tonight. Name is Albert Kim, as Ethan mentioned. I've been at Amazon 13 plus years. And
Newbie.
Exactly. I lead student programs, North America / Americas. That's a fancy way of describing. I lead a team of recruiters, recruiting managers, program managers, coordinators, everyone that supports our hiring full-time and interns within Amazon. So really excited to talk about our program, how we attract, how we recruit, and just share some tips and tricks on how to get your resume to pop and what to expect during our interview process.
Yeah, let's face it, how to get your dream job. So for fun, Albert and I have worked together a long time. And since Amazon was much smaller, although it was still big, and Amazon student recruiting was much smaller, and Albert used to be, he'd actually go out in the field with people. So we would go out and speak at universities and do an information session live at a university. And where we'd share, about Amazon and what the jobs were like. And we were mostly at that time recruiting for Seattle. That's not true anymore. But we thought it would be fun to open with a couple of personal stories and kind of share what we did back in the day. So one of the ones I'll share is years ago, Albert and I went down to UC San Diego. And I talked at UC San Diego. And we address not only students, but also graduate students. Now, one of the great things about UC San Diego is the graduate students, because they're mostly 21, have their own pub. So they had a graduate student pub on campus. So yeah, the UC system is very enlightened. If you don't have a pub on your campus, maybe that's something you can build up some envy with UC San Diego. But we're sitting in the pub and I order chicken fingers and we're having a drink or whatever. And my chicken fingers come, big basket of chicken fingers. And I pick one up and I bite into it and it tastes a little weird. And I kind of pull the chicken finger down and I notice the chicken is clear. And it's like clear and shiny. And if you know anything about chicken, that meant it was raw. So they had like flash fried it or microwaved it or something, but the chicken finger was raw. So I kind of tried to politely spit it out. And, they brought me new ones or whatever. Yeah, it does, Roy, it does sound sketchy, and it was. So I go back to my hotel, and I fly home the next morning, and the next evening, my head is in the toilet. I am so sick from food poisoning. I am giving back all the San Diego chicken fingers. So that's my San Diego recruiting story.
I have a few stories on our recruiting trips with Ethan. Ethan and I have gone on at least 5 trips together. So we've been to Pittsburgh, we've been to New York, we've been to San Diego. One of the things that pops in my mind, Ethan, is our trip to New York, where, part of my responsibilities back then were not only setting up the talk and prepping our executives on what the students might be interested in hearing, but also managing all the details. And so this was probably right around recession time.
Yeah, like 2008. Yep. Because I had just started working for Bill Carr.
Yeah.
Who we'll feature in this story.
And I remember planning a trip to New York. I haven't been to New York many times, but I think most of us have heard of the historic hotel called the Waldorf Astoria. And I thought, you know what? We should stay there. It's relatively cheap. I didn't understand the optics at the time. And I remember thinking, I wonder why it's so cheap. And I wonder if we're going to get in trouble. But it falls within the guidelines. And so I recommended it to Ethan and probably worked with his EA to get it all scheduled. And he did mention in passing while we were in New York, like, yeah, this is kind of a nice place. Like, how did this get approved? And we just kind of laughed about it. Sure enough, a week later, I get a ping from Ethan saying, yeah, my VP just gave me a hard time about staying at the Waldorf Astoria. And so it just reminded me, even though something is relatively cheaper within I guess our cost parameters, that people still may have questions about it. So it's something that Ethan and I every once in a while will bring up and kind of laugh about. So that's my funny story.
Yeah, the rest of the story on the Waldorf is I filed my expense report, and I was not a VP at the time. I was not a director at the time. I was what we call a senior manager. And maybe I just become a director. But my boss, who was an old-time VP at Amazon from very near the founding, he basically sent me an email when he saw my expense report. He's like, you stayed where? Because if you don't know the Waldorf Astoria, it's like the name hotel in downtown New York City. And it's had lots of famous people stay there. Now, I will say, my bedroom for $300 a night at the Waldorf Astoria was about the size of our soundstage here. I mean, it was tiny. Yeah, so what happened to frugality, right? And that's Chalupa asking. We were being frugal. What Albert forgot to mention is the hotel was under construction. Yeah. So it was totally wrapped in scaffolding. Yeah. And that's why it was so cheap. They were under construction. But my boss was hot. And he's like, what the hell were you doing? Why weren't you being frugal? And I'm like, whoa, wait. Student recruiting, those guys, they told me. Awesome Dave here, our producer, says the soundstage is 12 by 8. And that's about the size of my room there. So anyway, the funny part of this is my boss said, oh, they told you. So he fired off email, I guess, to Albert's boss, but Albert had to explain, hey, thank you, by the way, Suit and Tie Games, for the Twitch Prime sub. I love all the Twitch Prime subs, of course. Twitch Prime, my program. And I appreciate that very much. It means a lot to me and to my team. but yeah, Albert got the grilling and had to explain that it was actually quite affordable for New York. So, well, the boss got angry because he didn't realize that it was cheap for New York and that we had compared prices. He just assumed we had stayed in the most expensive place we could. So, with that, I will go into the real meat of the talk about student recruiting. We have a few slides that have been made into images that Awesome Dave's going to throw up on the screen. Albert will run through them. It'll only take about 5 minutes, and then we'll jump into Q&A like always. So take it away, Albert, about Amazon student recruiting.
Yeah, so as I mentioned previously, I'm responsible for hiring primarily in North America. I do have experience hiring in EMEA, as well as APAC and Japan. But Amazon, as Ethan mentioned, we have over 25,000 jobs that are currently posted. Keep in mind, those are probably individual jobs. Some of those jobs actually have multiple openings.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So there's a lot of area manager roles in the fulfillment centers. There's certainly more than one software development engineer role in Seattle that we're hiring for campus. We're hiring in the thousands.
That's just thousands of interns and thousands of students. Yeah.
Exactly. And so just want to run you through a couple slides just to kick us off, to get the juices flowing, to get the questions coming. So we hire across the globe. And so this image is really just to represent where we recruit. I'm responsible, obviously, for the left-hand portion of this image, the Americas. Most of our hiring across the globe is located in North America. I don't think that's a secret.
No, not a surprise.
We're headquartered in Seattle. Most of our roles are in Seattle. But what people don't know is that we have thousands of jobs outside of Seattle. So we have roles in the Bay Area, the East Coast, like New York, Boston, the Midwest, including Detroit. We have in the Southwest, so we have roles in Phoenix. We have roles in San Diego, LA. We have roles even in Atlanta, Florida, etc. We have a development center that we've recently started investing in Brazil, so we're hiring in that location. We obviously hire in Canada. And then, of course, like we have offices in India, in South Africa, in the United Kingdom, Japan, China, Korea, etc. So the question really becomes, where don't we recruit? And that list continues to grow month by month. So what you see today is not what you're going to see in January. So please
it's kind of a fun question, like where don't we recruit? Because like India has its own recruiting, right?
They have their own recruiting.
So there's like I wonder where we don't recruit, because we're
starting
students. We don't do Australia yet. I don't think
we do hire in Australia.
Okay, so I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, so we have team members.
South Africa.
South Africa, we do.
All right, so where is a place where we don't recruit? Because we now do the Middle East through Souk, I would assume. You may not do it, but I bet we do.
Our student programs does recruit in the Middle East.
In the Middle East. Yep. Okay, so
Israel, we recruit.
We're running out of geographies.
Yeah, so there's
Madagascar. We do not yet have North Korea.
No,
North Korea.
Certainly don't recruit there. Yes, South Korea.
Not that
yes.
we're not willing. Mongolia. Yeah,
yes.
maybe.
South Korea, we absolutely do. China, absolutely, but Mongolia, no.
Yeah, Roy Kim is.
We put a challenge to Roy.
Roy's a Purdue student, second generation Korean.
All right.
So he's maybe thinking of exercising a little rendezvous with ancestral homelands. Anyway, so that's the background. We have your questions in now. They've really popped up. The main thing.
Ethan,
you didn't finish the slides.
Yeah, sorry. I kind of went on about the globe.
No, I distracted us by like, where don't we recruit?
Yeah, so obviously we recruit for full time. I wanted to show this image about our internship program.
Go ahead and
because
flip. Perfect.
Most of the questions that I get are really about interns. So I get parents, I get students, I get emails, I get LinkedIn requests asking me about our internship program. We hire interns in the same locations that we hire for full-time. Our goal really is to hire interns and then convert them into full-time employees. And so it's our primary channel. I remember back when I used to work with Ethan many, many years ago, back in, I guess it's not many years ago to us, but like to some people, 7-8 years ago was a lifetime ago. But Ethan was a member of what we call our technical steering committee. So like it was our Jedi Council of technical directors and VPs that would offer me advice, solicited or unsolicited. And so one of the things that we talked about back then was the debate became, do we make our internship really, really tiny and just hire the best of the best? Or do we try to operate at scale and try to convert our interns into full-time? And so we went with the latter approach. Not a big surprise, but I get a ton of questions about our internship program. Fully paid, it's 10 to 12 weeks. We run it year-round. Not surprisingly, most of it is in the summer. And we offer them in the same locations that we hire full-time across the globe. So even though the majority is in Seattle, we still have thousands across the globe. For the purposes of today, I'll most likely focus my answers and set them around North America, Canada, and the U.S. But if you have questions about the rest of the globe, I'm more than happy to try to answer those.
Okay.
But yeah, that's our internship program. Paid, stipend, relo, the whole nine. And
it's actually interesting. I want to acknowledge Sneezes here. He came on our show, the show I did with Devin Nash. At the end of the show, I'll talk with, I'm glad you came on. I'm glad you had the willingness to come on that show. I'll talk at the end of tonight about our next plans with Devin. One of the things I think is worth saying about interns, it's funny, is we bring in thousands of interns to Seattle in basically May every year. Yeah. In May, we have a housing crisis in Seattle because we're trying to put up thousands of new students that are going to be here for 12 weeks. And somebody joked recently that they had an RV and they were going to park it in a parking lot and rent it for $4,000 a week. But I think realistically, don't we house some people in the student dorms at UW?
We used to. There's different ways that we provide housing.
Yep.
And I'll speak to in the past. And what we've done in the past may not necessarily translate to what we do in the future. But in the past we've offered students subsidized housing, and so like we'll pay for a significant portion and we'll find you a place. And we're rapidly running out, right?
Yeah.
And so not surprisingly in Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle's high demand.
Yeah, high demand. We're not the only ones hiring interns.
Yep.
Or we offer students the opportunity to find their own. Like students like that flexibility, and so they want the stipend. And so I think at last check, the amount that we offer for a stipend is in the top echelon, meaning like I would say the top 10% of our primary competitors. And so we know that it's a significant amount. But we also know that like finding housing is not easy. We're fortunate enough to have tools like Airbnb.
Well, one of the things I wanted to point out, though, is just the scale is big enough, because I want to talk some about scale. One of the interesting things Amazon has done is we've had to help the city get more buses so that students that are busing into work, because obviously they're not going to buy a car for 12 weeks if they don't have one, students who are busing into work clogged up the bus system. And we actually added some bus routes. We worked with the city to add student bus routes, basically.
Yeah, no, it's crazy to think about the scale in which we operate.
Yep.
And some of the things that we do and the actions that we take impact the city. And we try to be good partners, and we love when the city reaches out. A lesson learned for us over the last few years is we're being more proactive about notifying the city of what we're bringing in. So, but no, it's things change in the summer, and you could always identify our interns.
All right, so roll to the last slide, and then we'll answer questions.
Yeah, the last slide is really about what's the process? Well, not surprisingly, we want it to be frustration-free to find the roles that we offer. And so you go on Amazon.jobs. So you can find our open roles there. We typically start posting for the academic cycle in August. So the end of August, you'll see the new 2019 graduating in 2020 roles. That's full-time internships, whether it's engineering roles, like our non-technical roles, roles for our MBA graduates, etc. And so you apply. Most of our roles start with an online assessment. And I know I'm going to get a ton of questions. I already see some of the questions popping up about our assessment. The assessments are a way where students could, at their convenience, take the initial first step in our interview process. And so there's an assessment. After the assessment, if things go well and you're successful, then there's the human interaction. You have either an interview or a conversation with an engineer or a product manager, etc. And then that if things go well, then it's offer, accept, placement, and start. And so I'm fast forwarding through the last half of that. More than happy to answer as many questions that you guys have about that process, but it's relatively simple. Where I think Amazon is unique is we start with the assessment and we want to make it as convenient for the applicant, student, as possible.
Yep.
So,
and I helped develop the assessments, not directly to program them, but how they were decided upon. Because I know from chat over the last couple of weeks, some of you have a question like, how are they fair? How are they designed? And we can talk a little bit about that if you want. Again, the mods have put up the question instructions in chat. We have a lot of good questions here. So let's go to the first question. And we'll bring the screen back to the two of us. So the first question here is, what are some do's and don'ts when taking part in a big scale assessment center like the one at Amazon?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And so let me explain what our assessments are and what people may think assessments are. So in the United Kingdom, in London in particular, we run assessment days, or assessment center days, and that's and again, being the American, not knowing the local nuances, it was basically what we consider in the U.S. An interview blitz day, where we bring in candidates. So assessment center days are where we bring in candidates and they interview with either engineers or product managers face to face for the day. So some of the do's and don'ts when you're interviewing at an assessment center are you have to be prepared. And when you're and I'll speak to engineering, you should expect to be asked coding questions. Whether it's data structures, whether it's algorithms, whether it's an actual coding problem, you should be able to whiteboard your answer. So those are like what to expect. The do's is like answer the question being asked.
Yep.
There aren't a lot of don'ts. I think it's just common sense. The interviewer's responsibility is to ensure that the candidate has a good experience. And so what we try to train our interviewers on is, hey, we're not out for gotchas. We want to make sure that candidates are set up for success and they're able to answer a question in an environment where they feel most comfortable. So what I would tell candidates are ask clarifying questions. Interviewers and assessors want to know how you're problem solving and how you're breaking down a problem. And so that would be like my greatest tip. Like if you don't know how to code, I don't know what to really tell you, other than just keep asking a lot of clarifying questions. But I think the important part is demonstrating the fact that you can break down a problem. With that, in North America, there's two phases. So we do an online assessment and then we do an interview blitz. And so during the online assessment, the do's is like, hey, make sure you got Wi-Fi. I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but you'll be surprised.
Good connectivity. Makes sense.
Yeah, how many emails that we get on the technical issues. And it wasn't that the assessment went down. It's just like, look, I thought I had an hour and a half to take this. Something came up. Like, can I restart? So like, really it's, don't worry about when I get the invite, oh my gosh, I gotta take it today. Find a time that's gonna work for you. The reason why we do online assessments is so you can take it at 8 p.m. in your dorm room, in your house, in your apartment, wherever you may be. It's not so you're feeling stressed that you gotta be available at noon to take that phone call to do the initial phone screen. Some of the don'ts, like don't assume that the assessment is over unless you see a complete button or next steps. Like you know how you fill out an online form and you're like, am I done here? Like, make sure you're absolutely done. You'll be amazed at how many questions that we get on the technical difficulty, and sometimes it's user error, and it's avoidable.
That would suck to lose an opportunity over user error.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, we're all human, so like if you reach out and say like, hey, like this didn't work out, we're going to take that into account. So yeah,
Great.
Just keep that in mind.
So I would add a couple tips. I think if you get to welcome in everybody, I guess maybe Devin is wound up or maybe he's still streaming, but welcome in the folks who are coming across from Devin's stream. Always love to have you here. Tonight we're talking to Albert Kim, who's head of student programs for the Americas for Amazon. And so we're talking about recruiting at scale. And right now we're answering the question, what are some do's and don'ts? I would say a couple of do's and don'ts. Do be polite, do be civil, do be engaging. Don't come in with a chip on your shoulder. But the biggest one is, I think, is if you get stuck, talk as you think. And if you really get stuck, say, look, I can tell there's something I'm not seeing here. Can you point it out? Like, I get that I'm supposed to be seeing something I'm not, but what is it? So don't just stall and give up. And Furuki, you should probably throw that in our questions, and we'll come back to it. But let us talk a little bit about how assessments were developed. I think that'll be interesting for everybody on this topic. The way the assessments were developed is we realized that the effort of recruiting thousands of students and thousands of interns was getting out of control. And we could no longer fly Amazon teams to every to every university to do that. And to do in-person interviews. And so we had to have a better way. And what we came up with is we started trying to develop assessments that would give us an initial sense of if someone was a good fit for Amazon, both in terms of skills and in terms of approach. And what we did, though, is we ran the first few years, we ran those assessments and got the output, and then we still did full human interviewing. And we used the output of the human interview, who knew nothing about the assessment, to see how often they were matching. And basically, we created training data. And it was only after that training data was accurate, where the assessment was a good predictor of the human outcome, that we started using it and scaling it. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I just want to point out, Colossal says no, the dog ate my homework excuses. I think that could apply in this case as well. And
it honestly applies anywhere you're interviewing,
exactly.
Right? Like, you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Yep.
And so it's always going to be true that you never get a second chance to make that first impression. And so just be mindful of that. I've talked to other people here. I've talked other times and said, look, a lot of in-person interviewing is energy and enthusiasm. Duke of Thought, good to see you here. Duke's another guy who came on our stream. And there it is, the entire Nash Nation, 500 people coming over and trolling us with not everyone in chat can wear the hat. Welcome to the Nash Nation. I was waiting for your arrival. And obviously they plotted this. So now we need hats. Dave, can you get us some hats? Particularly if you have birthday party hats. We've sent our producer, so wait for it. So what we're talking about here is I have Albert Kim, the head of student recruiting for North America from Amazon. And we've been talking about how to get a job at Amazon, how to come be an intern, how to come be a full-time. And I think the thing you should talk about for a minute is we talked about SDEs, yep, but you actually recruit for 35 different profiles. And so list some of those, because not everyone in chat, not all 500 of the people coming across from the Nash Nation And we're getting the party hats, Devin.
Yeah.
Be just a little patient. We sent the man. The man is on a mission.
Yeah, no, we
But
have,
talk about the 35 different roles. Some of the things we do that aren't just software developers.
Yeah, we hire a lot of scientists, and so I know one of the questions are like, do we have any master's or PhD roles, and how do we hire individuals in that space? We have applied scientists, research scientists. We hire roles in support, and so we have what we call cloud support engineers. We have systems engineers that we hire for, UI, UX designers. In the non-tech space, we hire a lot of MBAs, believe it or not. And that's a tinge of sarcasm there. Of course, we hire MBAs. We hire them in product management, in finance.
Perfect. I get
Thank
a
you.
fedora.
Yeah,
There we go.
We hire them in sales, and so I often get referrals all the time from either executives, from friends at Amazon.
We can wear the hats.
Now you know.
Reacting in real time.
I get a lot of referrals with resumes like, hey, I know they're not an MBA, I know they're not a PhD, and I know that they're not in computer science. Do you have anything for this candidate?
Yeah.
It is rare that there's not a role, regardless of major.
Come on,
we
gotta bring our producer, Awesome Dave, on. There we go. So he's got the third hat, the Santa hat. So that's awesome. Let me pause you for a second. Anybody who's joined, which is several hundred people, if you want to ask questions of us about how to get a job at Amazon or student recruiting in general, we do have an extension that lets you ask questions. And everybody can come in and vote on what we'll answer next. So keep going, though, on the 35 different profiles.
Yeah,
You covered a lot of it.
Yeah, if you go on Amazon.jobs, you'll see
all the
you'll
options.
see all the jobs, but as I was saying, there isn't a job that we probably don't have for any major, and so it doesn't matter if you're in liberal arts, whether you're in engineering, whether you're in the sciences. There's probably a role for you at Amazon.
Yep. And thank you, Strider Stone, for the comments. In our Discord community, we have a community piece where different people, some of our regulars, if I'm not available, will advise you on different aspects of building your career and getting jobs. We also actually have a success stories where anybody in the community who's been helped, we encourage you to post your success story of what went well based on the stuff we talk about. For those of you who don't know me and the stream I do, every week I do at least one stream on building your career based on the fact I've worked about 25 years, most of it in leadership, and I don't want you to have to spend all that time learning the hard way what I've learned. So in Twitch terms, we say I'm here to help you speed run your career. So with that, thank you for the answers, Albert. We're going to jump to the next question. How often do you actually look at the LinkedIn of an applicant? What are some things that make a profile stand out? So this one may be more for me than for you,
Yeah.
but talk just a minute about if obviously you personally wouldn't use LinkedIn, but what you believe about the value of LinkedIn for students or not.
Yeah, I think the heart
And
of
Dave, my head's bigger than yours,
Yeah.
so I'm going to give you your hat back before I stretch it out.
Thanks, Ed. I didn't want to
No more hats.
I think the spirit of the question is how often do you really look at resumes and what's on your resume? Because LinkedIn really is a forum to showcase what you've done. You know, one of the things that I advise students is make sure you're talking about your projects and your internships.
Yep.
Because I think we've all taken a class, we've all delivered on a particular project, but we don't know what that project really is. So most people are going to say like they've taken some sort of object-oriented programming or they've taken data structures. Most of us have been part of a project, but I think you want to describe the project. One of the things that I found when I go on particular campuses is like everyone takes one particular class and there's that one particular project. And so everyone built this robot or did this poker game, did something. I would make sure that you talk about what you contributed to that project and change it up slightly. The other thing that I would make sure that I highlight is your internships. It doesn't matter if you worked at Amazon or Google or some local tech company that no one's heard of. You want to just highlight what you did. And in the engineering space, like, you want to talk about lines of code, what you put into production. If you're in finance, you want to talk about like what impact that you had, and who are some of the key internal stakeholders that you worked with. And so I think those are the things that stand out from resume to resume. The other thing that you want to make sure that you do, and not everyone understands this, when you look at a job description, whether you're looking at Amazon, whether you're looking at Facebook, Google, Microsoft, you're going to see basic qualifications and you're going to see preferred qualifications. You want to start with preferred qualifications to see if you meet those. And you want to make sure you highlight some of the things in the preferred qualifications. So if preferred qualification says something to the effect of like an MBA, you need a minimum of 3 or 4 years of experience prior to your MBA. You want to make sure you highlight those preferred qualifications, because most companies, if not all, are going to start with the candidates that meet the preferred, then go to the basic. And so anything that you can do to focus on the preferred qualifications is what I would recommend.
The other thing, that's great advice. I'll go back and talk about LinkedIn for a second. But for preferred qualifications, one thing to understand, particularly there's research that backs up the fact men will apply for jobs where they meet no more than 30% of the qualifications. We're very ambitious. Women as a group will tend not to apply unless they meet almost every bullet. So if you're a woman listening to this stream, or if that's you, regardless of gender, be aware that many people get hired who do not meet every letter of the qualifications. Those qualifications were written by some hiring manager, possibly me, who was dreaming up his or her perfect candidate. And you don't have to be that person if you're really good at a bunch of things, and if you make a compelling case of why you're the right person for the role. And so just realize, yes, we prefer all of those things, but they're not some you must meet them all. They're like our dream unicorn who's going to solve all the world's problems for us. Now on LinkedIn, first I'll say, as everyone here knows, and as the Nash Nation showed up, Devin and I collaborate quite a lot, and we're planning our next collaboration. I'm pulling forward from the end of the show, but we'll probably collaborate next on networking. And we might, I haven't thought about this, Devin, but I'm assuming you're still listening. We could do a LinkedIn review. So we've done resume review. We could walk through a few people's LinkedIn profiles. And we could do a LinkedIn critique as part of networking, because I think those two go together. So suggestion. That said, what are some things that make a profile stand out? Again, it's the same thing that makes a resume stand out. Specific facts, numbers, and what you actually did. LinkedIn is an amazing tool. I look for professional candidates. I now look at their LinkedIn 100% of the time. Yep. It's such, because a lot of times resumes are out of date or incomplete. I do look at what other people have said about the person on LinkedIn. For students, it's probably less, because we're judging you a lot. We're selecting based on your skills. And hey, Dukin, you are way late. Yes, you missed the raid by about 15 minutes, but we still like to have you here. So thank you for coming over. Welcome to my show. That's awesome timing. All right. So we'll go to the next question here. What makes a student stand out to you when considering them for entry-level roles? So Albert, I'll give you that. And GamerDad TV, thank you for the 100-bit cheer earlier. Appreciate that as well.
Yeah, one of the things that to keep in mind, at least at Amazon, we have what we consider student programs roles. So they're campus roles. They're designed for students in schools or recently graduated. So you're not actually competing against other individuals outside of college or like a year or two outside of school. And so if the question is really about how do I stand out amongst my peers, I think it's really about, again, talking about your projects, talking about your preferred qualifications. I saw Nickaroo had mentioned, oh, I got to join some finance clubs. Like that actually stands out. We also do talks with clubs, and so that may give you more access if we go on your campus. But the thing to make you stand out is really about the qualifications that you have and the internships. And don't worry about standing out against industry hires. So if I'm a year or two out of school and I've been in a job and I'm looking for another entry level job at Amazon, I'm considered a different pool than those that are in school. So you're not no need to worry about competing against those that pool of that pool of applicants. Really, it's about students, current students, and recently graduated students.
Awesome. So that is worth noting. Anyone who's less than 2 years out of school still comes through. Is that right? Is that still true?
No, if
how long?
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
So if you're within 6 months of graduating, you come through student programs. Beyond that, you come through our industry pipeline.
Yep.
So Day of the Bug, I'll just take this question live. So far, it's all about students. What are your opinions about self-taught developers? It's all about students because Albert's head of student programs at Amazon. So for self-taught developers, they go around student programs, right? They don't go through it. They come to our industry recruiters, and that's basically going to be, do you have enough experience of some kind to be equivalent to what we consider a degree? And that can be things you've accomplished, things you've proven. But you're going to have experience somewhere. Like just showing up to an Amazon industry recruiter or any large company industry recruiter and saying, hey, I didn't go to school, I'm self-taught, but I've not done anything that I can demonstrate to you, is going to get you nowhere generally. You're going to have to start at a small company generally, and it's simply because this is a good chance for me to talk about something I want to share. I've said we have 25,000 open jobs on Amazon. We have thousands actually of recruiters working to fill those jobs. I know that's hard to believe, but our recruiting groups in total across Amazon have several thousand employees, because that's 25,000 jobs open at any given second, but many more than that across the course of a year. Students with no experience or no past internships, or people who aren't students, you're probably going to want to go down the route of either building some projects you can demonstrate, building a mobile app, contributing to an open source project, having something on GitHub, having a web demo. You're going to have to do something that shows you can actually, you say, what about open source work? Absolutely. If you can point someone to a GitHub or an open source project where you have a lot of contributions, that is one way to prove results. That said, the point I wanted to make, Amazon actually touches several million resumes and profiles a year, and we advance to further steps many hundreds of thousands of candidates to make the tens of thousands of hires the company makes. At that kind of scale, you've got to narrow down. You have to have some experience, and you've got to narrow down some way to stand out. And if you're trying to come into a large company with no experience and no degree, mostly, I got to be honest with you, the recruiters are going to put you in the not likely to succeed pile. And so the ways around that are a networking in referral through somebody.
Exactly.
Get on an open source project with an existing Amazon person, or go somewhere else big like that, Google, Microsoft, whatever. Or second, go into a smaller company first, because there you can build that personal relationship and they can evaluate you at some level. At our scale, and I don't want to be harsh, we have to evaluate on some set of criteria. At a smaller company, they can evaluate you one-on-one as a person. With us touching several million people a year, we can't, unfortunately, evaluate every person individually by giving them an hour of our time to see what you know. And that's just the fact of scale. So, I think what else makes a student stand out? Work. What makes you stand out is having done real work. Any place, open source, internships, high school, your own web project, your own app. Do real work, show real work. That is the clippable chunk of advice. All right. Killed it, right? We're done with that. Okay. Let's go to the next one. This one's for you, Albert. How does recruiting change for master's and PhD students?
I think the question really becomes, how does recruiting change from profile to profile? And so when I talk about SDEs, software development engineers at Amazon, we hire them at all levels, whether they're bachelor's, master's, or PhDs. The process initially is the same. It could change because you may be expected to talk about your research. You may be expected to talk about your past experience since you're a master's. And so there might be more questions in that sense, but like the actual process, the recruiting process doesn't alter much. Now, we do hire masters and PhDs in the sciences and within our MBA. And so that's a different type of interviewing process. And so, for example, for PhDs, they're expected to actually give a talk during their interview process. And so, like, you know, they'll go through a couple interviews, go to lunch, and then after lunch, what we'll do is we'll bring in, we'll invite folks from Amazon to you know, just and you know, I know it seems like a lot of pressure, but people know, like, they're just talking about their research, so it's not a grill you Q&A type, but it's just more an opportunity.
It's nothing like coming on with me and Devin and asking for a raise.
Yeah.
But I will say next week on Tuesday, December 3rd, I think, I'm doing a show on public speaking. So I'm going to talk about how to speak in public and be a good public speaker and the basic tips of getting it right. And so if you're that PhD candidate who wants to, A, pass your defense, and B, know how you would then come do that here, I'm going to be talking about what I know about public speaking next week on Tuesday. That said, so that what I was laughing about is like you backed into queuing the perfect call to action promo. And so that'll be next week. That said, look, we didn't used to recruit PhDs.
Right.
And one of the things I'll say, and I'm transparent about this, I was in a PhD program. No, Grizzlywood, you can't ask questions through chat, but chat will tell you how to ask questions. And there it is, just like that. But what we, so I guess you did ask a question, right? You asked a meta question. Good for you. Anyway, we didn't used to recruit PhDs because early in Amazon's history, we wanted people who were focused on cranking out work. Now we've advanced so much, we need people who are also cranking out future science. And so for Alexa, we have a bunch of doctorates in speech science, obviously machine learning, artificial intelligence. We have people in computer vision, my field, for drones. We have people, what else do we hire PhDs for?
Robotics.
Again, the
big data.
It's a long list.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, security. Security is a huge thing at Amazon, obviously, because of customer trust.
Yep.
We have tons of people keeping your data safe, making sure that it's not ever exposed in a way. I better be careful what I say here because I want to make a bunch of jokes about Russia, and I'm just gonna let it be. Other than that one. All right, so when will Alexa mow my lawn?
Doesn't
what
Husqvarna have like a robotic lawnmower? There's gotta be
yeah,
some kind of integration.
there's so many stories there. For those of you who don't know, the reason I actually left my robotics PhD program was I looked at the best robot that was possible with current technology in the early 90s, and it was Roomba. And I thought, you know what? If the smartest roboticist on earth, what they can build right now is Roomba, I need to go somewhere else and do something else. Um, so there you go. We're going to jump to the next question. I love all the questions here. I'll throw Albert a couple of softballs before we end on stuff I think you want to know. Yep. But the next question is, how much extra weight is placed on a student from a target school compared to a non-target? I have no idea.
Yeah, no, that's a really that's a common question that I get.
And you might need to define target school in the
and you know, like target school at Amazon, we define target school as a school that we have a physical presence at, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a top 5, top 10 program. There's several factors. Number one, the addressable market. So, you know, we started this conversation talking about frugality, our trip to New York, but we have cost in mind, right? And so we want to make sure if we go to a school, like what's the addressable market? We also look at what has been our return. Do the students that we make offers to, do they want to come back? Do they want to work in Seattle? Do they want to work at Amazon? We obviously look at school rankings. That's a factor, but not the factor. So I want to dispel a myth that target schools are all about pedigree, and I have to go to Carnegie Mellon was mentioned. Carnegie Mellon is a target school.
But, damn straight!
So
is Purdue.
But so is Purdue. And both with heavy influence from Ethan, because when we went to Carnegie Mellon, we started recruiting not only CS majors, but we started looking at other ancillary like CS majors within the school. And so when Ethan and I would go on campus, we went from getting 40 people to come to our talks to hundreds of people coming to our talks, because we would draw from the master's program. We would computer engineering, electrical engineering. And so the extra weight.
Feel free to shout out your schools.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to know where you're actually from. So it's totally good. UT Austin's a great school. We do that.
We
Boiler Up, absolutely.
Purdue Pete.
I know we've got, Purdue Pete. I know we have some Waterloo folks here.
Yep. So, and you know, like Michigan is a school. Berkeley, obviously. So extra weight.
The School of the Basement, that's a good school. A friend of mine who's been very successful, he's a director now at Comcast, just got relocated to Sky TV in London. He said he went to ANU, which is absolutely no university. Luxembourg, I assume, Uni of Lux, that's awesome. Yep. The Ohio State, always kills me that they have the in there.
Yep.
Fresh Pot of Coffee, absolutely no university. That's totally good. The School of the Streets. So Leet Hephaestus runs a startup here in Seattle. I think he's got about a dozen employees. School of Hard Knocks. That's not true. Duke of Thought's a liar. He may have also gone to the School of Hard Knocks, but I know because we reviewed him on Devin's stream that he's out of Boston. I think it's Worcester there.
Yep.
Right. But I think one of the questions, let's get back to the actual question.
Yeah, so
do we actually weight those people more, or do they have to, is it the same bar for everybody?
Yeah, you know, I think I started at the beginning of the talk, I can't go into exact numbers, but we're hiring, in the thousands. And so it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out that
we're taking from everywhere.
We're taking from everywhere. So it really then becomes, how does my application stand out? And then it goes back to preferred qualifications, basic qualifications. Now, we do go on campus. We don't go to hundreds of universities, but we go to dozens of universities. And so how do we prioritize? Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, addressable market, and where we've had success in the past. So, I think one of the things that Amazon prides itself on is that we're a meritocracy, and we're not hyper focused on pedigree. And so, if you go to an Ivy, I think that's great. If you go to a state school, I went to a state school. It's great as well. So I saw a question of Ivy Leagues are deprioritized. No, they're not deprioritized. A handful of them, a chunk of them are in our
And that's for
targeted
tech.
schools.
We get
Yeah.
a ton of MBAs from the Ivies.
Exactly.
It says the pressure here, Ojo 4 is a comment he's adding to this. The pressure to attend a target school is mostly unwarranted as a student. Look, as someone who went to a so-called target school, and I had no idea at the time, it was completely, it was a huge networking opportunity because many of my peers are at wonderful companies all over the world. And so I won't tell you, no one would tell you that a target school, the name means nothing.
Right.
I have a good friend who went to Harvard, and like Harvard is the golden name in education. And ironically, she's made a career while having a degree in archaeology, which, is kind of apropos of nothing. But the Harvard name is a powerful name, and having gone there means something. Yeah. That said, how many universities did we bring in? And we're going to talk about people not from any university in a second. Mm-hmm. But how many universities did we hire somebody from last year?
In the hundreds.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I knew it was 170 at some point. Yeah. I'm sure it's probably more than that now. So if you're smart and work hard, Devin and I tell you guys this all the time. If you're smart and work hard, you can get a job anywhere. And what university we went to doesn't matter nearly as much as what did you learn and what can you demonstrate. Yep. And in fact, all of you who went to or who are going to smaller schools, or for that matter, went to no school at all, should love the automated assessment approach because it's about what can you do and what can you show, not where are you. It is true. Look, what is being said in chat, lots of people visit target schools. And so, yeah, Amazon's got this massive scaled program where you can apply from anywhere. Different qualities of company are going to go to the Ohio State, or to Waterloo than are going to go to smaller schools. But that doesn't make smaller schools bad. It just makes, if you go there, you're going to have to work harder to get the equal access to employers. Is that fair?
Absolutely. It's really about accessibility. It's about addressable market. I mean, people often ask me, like, why would we go to school X? And the answer could be as simple as, well, it's 3 miles from a local development center, and so why wouldn't we attend that school?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we can drive down the road to it, we're going to go.
It doesn't mean that school is better than a Waterloo or an MIT. It's just the proximity's there. There's a relationship. We should leverage that.
Yeah, a great example of that, though, they're probably a target school now, was when we started going to UC Irvine. Exactly. Because they were right next to our Irvine Development Center in Irvine, California. Yep. Right, in
Santa or Orange County.
Yeah, in Orange County. And so, of course, we went there. Let's go to this next question. It's the hot one we've been expecting to show up, and now it has lots of votes. And so let's jump to, it's long, I'll read it out. What do you say to people who view this new trend towards automated recruiting as increasingly impersonal? I feel like it creates frustration when you can't actually talk to a real person, and trying to get a job is like trying to get customer service at a company that's not Amazon. Have at it. I prepped you that this would come up, so he's been locked and loaded for this, and then I'll take it from there.
No, I think like one of the things that a common question that I get is this question, because I think as our online assessment has gained in popularity, and we've been using it for over 5 years now, and that's a pretty long time. The myth is that it's 100% automated, that it's all machine learning based, and students are taking a test and we're spitting out like a team match, and then you're placed, and then you take a number, you have a start date, and you go.
And that's not at all how it works. The top scoring people are all routed to me personally. I cherry pick the people I want, and then everybody else, no, nothing like that.
One of the things,
although that's a good idea.
The thing that we do at Amazon, in any business at Amazon, is we start with the customer and work backwards. And one of the feedback that we get was, you didn't select me, I didn't get to start the interview process. And while we can't interview everyone, this has really opened the doors for us to give many more students a chance to interview with us. And the online assessment is just the starting point of how we interview and assess individuals. And so it is not 100% computer based. You will be talking to somebody in some capacity, whether through additional interviews, whether you're talking to an engineer about why they should come to Amazon and talk about how you took the online assessment. And so it is not just 100% online assessment, SAT, you get a score, and then we tell you what school you're going to be admitted to. It's not that, and it's not as scary or as intimidating. The feedback that we got was students wanted more flexibility in when they first engaged with us. Hey, I know you're coming on campus, or you've given me 5 phone screen times. I can't make any of them. With an online assessment, you can start, like I mentioned in the beginning of this talk, at your convenience. Like we time bound it, obviously. When we give you the assessment, you have X amount of time to complete it. It's typically 2 weeks, sometimes longer. Yes, you can get extensions, all that kind of stuff. But it's just the beginning of your journey. One of the things that I forgot to mention to advice on how to succeed, especially in these technical assessments, is you absolutely need to know how to debug if you are interested in an engineering role. We start with that. And so a lot of people don't know. And so just a pro tip, make sure like you're brushing up on debugging. As easy as that sounds, that's one of the first way that we just kind of assess you initially. So what I would say to individuals is our assessments are just the first step. We understand that the misperception could be that it's impersonal. That is not our intent. Our other roles, and I'm focusing heavily on engineering roles, but our other roles that have assessment, it's also just a way to just, like we have a starting point to know like what you may be interested in or what you're good at.
And so that assessment is not coding at all.
No.
It's other factors about basically how you approach work, your personality, the way you solve problems. It's not possibly technical at all. Yeah. So we use that. The one thing I want to address here that you may not know, I'm sure you know from our competition, there's a lot of frustration with automated resume screeners. And the fact that resumes come in by the thousands. I once read that like Google posted a role and they got 37,000 applicants or something. I don't know if that's true or not. But there is, and I don't know if we use any automated resume filtering, but I honestly don't know. Something I should go find out, by the way, or maybe you know. Does industry recruiting do any automated filtering?
I know that in the past we've experimented, we being Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if like it actually went into production. I can't, I'm not on those teams.
Yeah.
I can only speak for our team. There's a human that looks at the applicants.
Yeah, but a lot of companies are now using resume scanners, and they use resume scanners in 2 ways. One of them is well known and has been in use for years, which is on job boards. You can set up a bunch of searches that give you all the resumes, if you're a recruiter, that give you all the resumes that hit certain keywords. So there's no doubt whether you're being scanned when you apply or whether you're being scanned if you post on a job board, automated search is a huge thing, and it's only going to get bigger, and it's because of volume. In the past, the way people recruited, believe this or not, there were these things called newspapers. Awesome Dave had a newspaper route as a child, so that tells you that he's even older than I am. But there were these things called newspapers, and people put ads in those, and other people sent in resumes or came physically into the office and gave them to people. The world has changed, and now you get applicants from all over the world. And so the point is, that's led to a lot of automation. Anytime anything is online, there's going to be somebody trying to automate it. Quality varies. Earlier in this show, we described how we assess candidates, and it's not automated in that gross sort of look for keywords. If it says, I am an awesome ninja coder, throw it out as overhype. And if it says, I am a humble C++ developer, bring them in. We don't do that. But I know a lot of companies do, and that's real. I said Devin and I are going to talk about networking. For those who've been on the show before, you know that I talk all the time about the value of building a network. You can get past almost any gatekeeping system by knowing someone in the company. And for all you folks who are at different universities, you probably have alumni who are here. And so there's a million ways for you to get different types of consideration, to get around systems you may perceive as impersonal. There's a lot of ways, and it involves, and by the way, that's valid skill. It turns out that we have the data that says the most likely things to make you succeed at Amazon are not only your technical skill, in whatever you do, finance technical skill, artistic and design skill. Those are necessary but not sufficient. It's actually your human characteristics that are going to make the difference. And we know very well that the number one factor in success beyond your technical skill is grit. The idea that you are going to fight through challenges, and when you get a setback, you're going to work to overcome it. One of the number one things that determines success in an internship here turns out to be, did you make a code check-in your first week? So we know that those people who don't make a check-in their first week are big on learning. Oh, I have to learn before I can do this. I have to study it. The people who just jump in and give it a try tend to do better. And there's someone in chat here saying they cull low GPAs or blank GPAs. Totally, some companies do that. Pink Dragons, thank you for the cheer. But what I want to point out is that there's a lot of different ways to get a job, and those begin with using the leverage you have, the tools you have to stand out from the pack, and your human characteristics matter. I want to check some stats with you because I think people will care. When I knew, and I may be out of date because we've grown the program, when I knew about 70% of interns that came in ended up with a full-time offer or an offer to return as an intern if they were multi-year, not yet graduated. Is that about the same or drifted down a little with the larger volume?
No, I think, I can't speak to specifics, but I think we have a reputation
That's code for I was giving up secrets.
Yeah. I will say that students know to apply to our internship because they know it's they have a high probability of getting a full-time offer and that they're going to be set up for success. So it doesn't necessarily mean you get an internship or just going to make you an offer. They know that they're going to have to put in the work, but they know that the manager and the mentor that are assigned to them are going to really work with them to ensure that they're set up for success. So I think like the numbers that you were throwing out, that was when we were hiring in the hundreds, and now we're hiring in the thousands. And so I can say that I'll say this: it's not anything lower than that. So,
oh yeah. Well, so we're hiring more. So it's all right. Very good. So that's awesome that everyone. So the point is, work to get an internship. You'll have a good chance of getting a job offer. And I will just say most people then accept those offers. And maybe we should talk about that for a minute. A lot of people ask, and then we'll go on to the next question. Many people ask or say, I'd rather go to a startup. Like, oh, I'm going to go make my fortune, startup, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, I worked at exclusively startups from before coming to Amazon. And so I've been on both sides of this line. What would you say about the start your career at Amazon versus start at a startup?
I think there's there's two schools of thought there. You have students that want to start at a quote unquote larger big tech company. You have students that I want something smaller. I think I'm going to be set up for success. One of the things I tell students, especially when they're contemplating multiple offers, especially when it's like not necessarily Amazon to a like-sized company,
Right.
but a startup is.
There are very few like-sized companies.
Yeah. One of the things I say is we are like, think of us as a company of very small startups that happen to be a big company. And so I point to programs such as Primaire. I point to programs that Ethan helped build. Prime Video wasn't called Prime Video back then, or is it still called Prime Video? Back then it was.
It's still Prime Video.
It's
Back
Prime
then
Video.
it was Amazon Video. It had many names.
It had many names, but back when you were part of that, one could argue that it was a very startup culture. And so all these announcements that Amazon makes, like these teams are very small development teams. And so think of Amazon as a well-funded startup, but and really that's the advice I give students that may feel like I am just a number. Like, no, even though there's thousands, tens of thousands of Amazon employees, you really know like your team. We often refer to two pizza teams. I'll let Ethan talk.
Yeah,
about that.
I assumed you'd get to two pizza teams.
But no, it's the environment, and if it's the smaller collaborative environment that you're looking for, then Amazon absolutely has that. That's just instilled in our culture and how we and our development teams. And I'll let Ethan talk about two pizza teams.
Yeah, well, two pizza team is just Jeff Bezos' idea that no team should be larger than can be fed by two pizzas. And so we try to get all projects down to where they can be done by 8 or 10 people, or maybe 6 people if they're really hungry. So that's what you're looking for. And you on that team, you're gonna not be a number. So no, projects are not done solo, but that's a really hungry person. Duke of Thought, when you were on screen, you did not look like you eat 2 pizzas all by yourself. But anyway, the point is we try to get teams down to that size. That said, look, I think of startups versus big company as risk reward. Everyone, all the startups I went to struggled. They ended up struggling. And by the way, I thought I was going to be a gajillionaire several times over in my 30s, and none of it happened. And my startups did okay in hindsight. The point is, startups, you learn how to be broad and put on a lot of hats. Amazon, you learn how to be deep and to really drive something to shipment. And so I think it's a trade-off, and I think both are good opportunities. Let's go to the next question, because we have a lot of good questions here. And actually, Dave, before you walk off, the whole question isn't even on screen because they're so big. So I just finished college. There we go. I just finished college, but I have 1 year of work experience in my field, PR and marketing. Should I apply for an internship role or junior position, and how are my chances with each? How does moving to the job factor into this when considering moving and cost of living? So if you've graduated, we don't do interns who've graduated. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So at Amazon, in the Amazon context only, if you've graduated, we only consider you for full time. Now, many companies are different than that, and they will let you intern. If you want to come to Amazon, you apply full time. That said, and we have lots of again, I won't go into the numbers, but we hire more people full time than we even hire as interns. Right now, we're kind of more in intern season, but we hire even more full-time graduates across all the things we hire. So the next thing I would say, look, if you can get a full-time job, take a full-time job. If you need to intern somewhere, that's a lot better than sitting waiting for things to happen. Because as we said earlier, the best proof that you can get a better job is that you have a job and you're doing work. So get a job and do that job well and develop some references and some network there. And if that means you intern, it is what it is. And junior position, everything is junior to something and senior to something else. Get in a job, build a network, deliver some results, and then get a better job, either inside that company. Many people move up at Amazon. I meant to mention this. One of my peers as a vice president at Amazon came to us as an intern in customer service when he was in med school. And he decided to drop out of med school, and he had no tech background. Do you know who I'm talking about, by the way? Do you know Pete Hill?
Oh, yeah.
Pete Hill came, I may have his story slightly screwed up, but he came. This is not what's in the water pitcher, I swear. See, there isn't very much missing.
Thank you.
Wow, you're going to kill our reputation here. This is going to be one of those channels that's like shots for subs or something. No, we don't do that here. So how does moving to the job factor into this when considering moving and cost of living? I'll just take this one because it doesn't apply to what we do, because we relocate you, right? If you take a student job with us, you will be relocated by the company. Same with an internship.
In most, for most roles. There's a couple of roles that we don't because they're hired more locally, but
sure.
Yes.
But for our major roles, like if you're moving to Seattle, we relocate you, which means we pay for the moving truck, we pay for the temporary housing, we pay for your airline ticket, blah, blah, blah. That's what that means. So going to the, what cost is, I just covered that, the Rex, so chat's a little bit delayed. So how does moving to the job factor in? Well, obviously cost of living matters. Thank you. I don't know how to even say your name. You'll have to sound it out there for me, Vertukel. Shots or boycott? No. You go ahead and boycott. I do my shots offline, and I like tequila more anyway. That said, how does moving to the job factor in? Obviously, cost of living matters. Vertical. Duh. Sorry. So I was chiding Devin for not getting fresh pot of coffee, and now I can't get vertical. Well done. Okay. Cost of living matters. And I negotiated with Amazon when I was hired about the cost of living in Seattle. And I got more out of it as a result of saying, wow, that city's really expensive. So that's totally a factor. And you should definitely consider what's most important to you. Is it where you live? Is it what you get paid? Is it the relative buying power of what you get paid? When I lived in Pittsburgh, we used to recruit people, no kidding, by sending them a picture of the house they could afford in the Bay Area for what they made, and the picture of the house they could afford in Pittsburgh for what we made. And one of them, of course, looked like a falling down, foreclosure on a postage stamp. And one of them looked like, 5 bedrooms with a swimming pool in the backyard. So let's go ahead and move on. But I heard someone in chat call out that this advice here is good. Get a job and demonstrate results. Get any job where you can demonstrate that you can do something, and then build off of that. Because getting a job from being unemployed is harder than getting a job from being employed. It's sad, but if you're out of work, tragically, some people think, well, you're out of work because you suck. And then, that's just because if you were any good, you wouldn't be out of work. So, yeah, better to have a job. And if you're coming out of school, take the job you can get and then work up from there. All right. Hey, Dukin, I love it. You should network and, yes, find a job. Any job you get, do SDA 1 and 2 level referrals count for as much? referral is not as important as at college. It starts being important at what STE2 is our next level up. It's generally people with between 2 and 3 years of experience on up to 5 or 6 years of experience. It starts to matter a lot there. Referrals always win. And by the way, of all of Amazon's recruiting, probably 25 to 30% of people come through referrals. So it is a huge portion. All right. So we've moved on, though. This is a tough question. Amazon is somewhat notorious for poor. WLB is going to be work-life balance. PIP is going to be performance improvement plan culture and employee churn among tech companies. I don't necessarily agree with that last part, but we absolutely have had reputation issues in some of these. And on my channel, we address polite questions head on, and this one is polite, even though it's hard, so I'm happy to take it. What would motivate a high-performing intern to choose Amazon over other prestigious tech firms like Google, Microsoft, Dropbox, etc.? I'm not going to put this one on you because I'm fired up about it. Okay, so first, Amazon employs, and yeah, thank you, Pink Dragons, for pointing out, I'm speaking on my behalf, not Amazon. That said, Amazon employs tens of thousands of people, well, hundreds of thousands of people, and we hire tens of thousands of new people each year, including, as you've heard, thousands of interns and thousands of students. So, number one, there have been some horror stories reported in the news. I am sure you go to any company with thousands of employees or tens of thousands of employees, and you're going to have somebody who had a bad experience for sure. So an example, totally not related to us, that happened years ago, but you can go read about. There was a woman, EA spouse, who complained about how her spouse at EA had to work all these really long hours, Electronic Arts, making games. And there's a whole thing there. Second thing, though, is I will also say, in any sufficiently large company, some of the managers in our world are not good. And we try to get them out. But I will never say that in a company our size, there hasn't been some employee or some intern who had a terrible experience. And I'm sorry for that. And I know Albert here is all about them. And we can talk about some of the safeguards we have in place for interns. However, why Amazon? Foremost, in many ways, in different technology industries, we are simply the best. We are not the best in all, but we are simply the best in some. Second, sure, there's some horror stories. There's also tons of people who have been super successful. Many of our students, many of our now principal engineers, many of our leaders came in as students. So yes, there's some people it didn't work out for. There are also thousands of students for whom it did work out. Work-life balance. I'm going to tell you this about almost any company on earth. If you can find a small company that maybe is different, a lifestyle company, great. Companies don't have feelings. Companies are designed to trade money for labor and turn that labor into profit for shareholders. That's what companies do. Reality check. If you sell your labor and then you choose to work out of balance with the rest of your life, all companies will say, thank you. Thank you for doing that. We love your work. There are safeguards in place at a big company to avoid or minimize that. But if you don't regulate, nobody knows how many hours you're working. Your bosses, some bosses, by the way, are coming by and counting. Not at Amazon, but other places. They will be coming by and counting your hours. But mostly, the boss is worried about his own life and his own problems. What he knows is you're doing lots of good work or you're not. The point is, if you don't regulate your own work-life balance, unfortunately, most companies and most bosses will not do it for you. And I used to talk about 4 types of employees. There's employees who work 8 hours and get 8 hours of work done. I love them. There are employees who work 8 hours and don't get 8 hours of work done. I fire them. And you can talk about pips. I'm going to be honest with you. If you don't do an honest day's work and deliver value, you go away. And I don't apologize for that. That's reality. Now, there are employees who work 14 hours a day in order to get 8 hours of work done because they're not really working during all that time. And those people are great too, because they're doing their work. I don't care how long you're at your desk as long as you get your work done. Now, the last type of employee we have to talk about, which is they're at work 14 hours and they get 14 hours of work done. Now, if they're happy doing that, I love it. If they're unhappy doing that, I'm not requiring that. Because I like the guy who gets 8, or the guy or girl who gets 8 hours of work done. But some people love their work and they want to work hard. And some people really want to move up in the world and they want to put in that time. And remember, companies will say, this is great. I'm paying you for 8 hours. You're doing 14. I will promote you. That's going to happen. And that's no different than sports. Every sports figure ever has said he or she works harder, moves up faster, right? We're a meritocratic world, a results-based world. So I am fired up. Yeah, Bootstraps here came in late, but I'm glad you came because you said you've been waiting for this all day. Some of my coworkers do that, 2 hours on Instagram and a 1 hour lunch. They still go home after 8 hours. That's not good. Okay. Yeah, who knows why the stream is stuttering? Probably because I got mad at it. That's why. So, now the rest of the stuff here, and then I'll give Albert, if you want to add anything, you can stay out of this if you want. Because, I would be surprised, by the way, if the other companies mentioned don't have equal churn, but I don't know that. What I'll say is Amazon is a performance-based culture. We work very hard to try to make sure that we are giving people chances and opportunity. But yes, led by Jeff Bezos, who's a wonderful leader, he has an incredibly high bar, and you can... a stream is low performing, time to fire it. That is a good point, Furoki. It's out of here. I see Perpetual White Belt's comment here. Well, that wasn't us. Unwritten rule, all international kids needed the visa, worked 80 hours and billed 40? Like, no way. So whoever that was, I don't know, bad company. PIP culture means lots of performance improvement plans. We do hold people to high bars. And if someone's not performing, we give them feedback and we try to get them to improve. Look, we never want to lose anyone that we've hired. We've paid money to find them. We've paid money to relocate them. Like, even though I said I fire people who work 8 hours and don't get 8 hours of work done, that's if I can't get them to do more to be successful, to deliver value. We've put in the time to find them. We've put in the time to relocate them. We've put in the time to train them. Every person we let go of is a loss to us. And so it's a last resort. That said, we do it all the time because some people are in the wrong role and can't fit. And some people start out doing really well, and then something happens in their life where they decide they don't want to be there, but they haven't yet found another job. They just quit in place and they wait for it. Well, if you're going to quit in place, I'm going to help you quit out of place. So, anything you want to add to this rant?
I think you covered it.
All right.
You know, the one thing that I'll add is most large companies have a mature HR program in place, and they're also performance based. And so it may look slightly different, but at the end of the day, companies are looking to optimize performance. And in my world, we want to set up the student up for success and the manager and the team up for success. And so we have multiple trainings for managers. We have orientation for students. And I think the heart of what Ethan is saying is that we're investing in employees, we're investing in new hires, and we want to make sure that we're ultimately setting them up for success.
Absolutely. And I'll share a fun story here. I want to call out Fur Knight, who says he retired at 34. Great for you. And missed being in a professional work environment. Thank you that you like our content and appreciate you being here. Feel free to go start something if you want to come out of retirement and give some of these people jobs. Hey Dugan says life is hard. Bad things happen that kill people's work ethic. I agree. I agree. Specifically, people get divorced, they get sick, they lose a parent, they lose a spouse. There are real things that can kill work, not work ethic, but that can put a tax on people. We try to wait those out if we can. If it's something temporary, where someone we think is going to recover, but yes, some people go into a multi-year slump. And we, as an employer, we are not your social support system. And so that's just reality that if you're not working after a while, you're not working. And so I think we've beaten this one to death. The last thing I will tell as a story is the very first person, this is before Amazon, I'm old enough, this is before Amazon was founded even. The very first time I ever had to terminate someone was, believe it or not, an intern. And he was a Carnegie Mellon intern. I worked at a company in Pittsburgh, and we hired an intern who quit showing up. So I'm not going to apologize for letting go of somebody who didn't bother to come to work. So, all right, cool. And yes, of course, we have support programs in place. Z Falcor's asked, yes, we have what's the it's called the EAP, Employee Assistance Program. So I can call at any time, to get, to try and help someone. To get help, I can get counseling, I can get help for my family. So, yeah, Hey Dugan says they let themselves go. Exactly. He wanted a couple extra weeks of vacation at the end of the summer, so he just took it. All right, we're going to do a couple more questions, then we're going to go eat. Because I can smell the food being ready upstairs, and we've been here a while. So with that in mind, there's a lot of questions tied at 3 votes. So I'm going to ask if anyone in chat wants to go upvote a question. We'll take the next 1 or 2 that have good numbers of votes, and there's a bunch tied at 3, and then we'll call it a night. Because I answered the hard one, and I blew all my energy on the rant. So, okay. Well, we'll take the one with 4, and then we'll take the next one after that. So what's the most creative thing someone has done to make themselves stand out when applying to Amazon? Did it work? I'll have to think about that. Albert's run into a lot more people than I am.
Yeah, I'm probably dating myself a little here, but the one thing that just pops top of mind is when I was at UC San Diego, there was a student that was wearing his resume on his shirt, and I thought that was unique. But I think what he did to go a step beyond that was, instead of giving the paper resume, he had multiple shirts made, and so not only was he wearing the resume shirt, he handed it to us.
Oh, that's clever.
Am I suggesting that people do that? I mean, it definitely, I've never forgotten about it. That was almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah, the fact that you remember it 10 years later. I think Devin crashed out. He's the marketing guru. He would love something like that, right? I mean, anything that makes you stand out, that's super clever. Did they get hired?
Did they get hired?
You probably don't know.
I honestly don't know. Yeah.
That's because of our scale, but I would imagine someone with that much chutzpah
got hired
absolutely got hired. And if they didn't get hired with us, they got hired somewhere. So yeah, that's awesome. I don't think this is a case where I think you've got me. I don't know if I have a story. I will tell a funny story from a previous Amazon employer. This is standing out in a bad way, so sorry, but it's so funny. We had an employee, and please speak up if this ever happens to you. We brought in someone, and we gave them a rental car. We're flying them in to interview them. We got them a rental car at the airport at a previous company. And it turns out they didn't really know how to drive very well. And we didn't know, and they didn't speak up. So we got this person a rental car. They drove to our office. That went fine. But the interview, I guess, didn't go that well. And when they were leaving, they coming out of the parking space, they hit another car, and that freaked them out. So they hit the gas. So they ended up hitting 3 cars in the parking lot. And so that's like how to stand out in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
Because of course the parking lot was all employee cars. So an email went around the office like, "Is this your license plate? We need to talk to you." The point you can take away from this is if we ever reach out to you and it's not going to work for you for some reason, please tell us. We can accommodate you. I also had an employee, he was from India, and we did hire him in that same company. When I took him to interview him, we went to a restaurant. It was like a taco place. And he really didn't know what to do. He had never seen a menu before. He brought his wife with him when he came to graduate school, and they always ate at home. And he ended up explaining to me, "Well, I've been to a McDonald's twice, but I've never done this." And so, you will get in interviews, you will get all kinds of stuff. But cultural barriers can be there. And he got hired because his skills were good. I will also tell a story. Last story. This is an Amazon story. I don't know who the person is, but one of our recruiters who's now departed once told me that there was an employee who came and interviewed and carried a Beanie Baby with him and petted it throughout his entire interview day. Yeah. You know this story?
I do.
I don't know the details, but he got hired as well, as far as I understand it. Again, skills trump anything. But the beanie, I didn't know that you knew this. The beanie.
I didn't know it was a Beanie Baby. I heard it was a stuffed animal, but.
Stuffed animal Beanie Baby. I mean, yeah. So the moral of this story is have really good skills. Yeah. Because that will get you through anything. All right, we got a couple of things that are voted up here, and we're going to go a little faster now. What do you wish new college grads did more of that made your job easier? That one's for you, Albert.
Be responsive. I know recruiters get a bad rap. We're not as responsive as candidates would like, but we get it that it's competitive. But if you have a deadline, like meet your deadline. So I think that's what I would wish. For new employees that start, I would say like demonstrate situational awareness and demonstrate strong ownership from the beginning. And I think like that would make your success at Amazon or any employer off to a good start if you demonstrated strong ownership. So.
Yep. Firewall is he hasn't been welcome. You haven't been in the chat before. His advice here is really good. If you want to, that's how to make sure you convert as an intern. I tell people all the time, go ask if what you can do to help. If you are an intern, you probably don't have a lot of like family in whatever city you're interning. Like at least if for us, you come out here, so you do have a chance. We talked about work-life balance. You do have a chance in those 10 or 12 weeks to really hit it hard and make an impression. Don't take on a project for the summer and then not deliver it. Like, deliver the damn project.
At all costs.
At all costs. And if you need to negotiate the scope or whatever, do that. But, complete something. The other thing I will say, I once had a student apply. He might have been a couple years out of college, so he came direct to me. He failed the interview loop, but I liked him so much. I discussed with him how he could go learn on his own and come back and reapply. And he went and basically improved his skills for 6 weeks, got his skills up to where we needed in a specific area, and I brought him back through for another interview, and he passed the second loop. That's someone, we connected, and we're friends to this day, even though he's no longer with Amazon. But he had the motivation and the drive that when I challenged him, can you improve your skills here? He did. What else do I wish new college grads did that made your job easier? Let's see. The biggest single thing as a manager is if you don't understand what we're asking you to do or why, ask us. Assuming things and starting an explanation in your head that's mostly negative usually isn't right. And it's so easy to do, though. I'd much rather be asked, hey, Ethan, that seems like a really dumb thing for you to ask me to do. Why? As opposed to thinking, oh, he's just whatever, giving me the junk work or testing me. No, I'm not. I'm not running mind games on you.
Yeah, learn to be curious is one of our core leadership principles, and I think like asking for that clarification is really, really important.
Yeah.
It demonstrates like
We
interest.
like
Yeah.
intelligent questions.
Yep.
And just like here, I take any question that's polite at work, I am willing to entertain any question that's polite, even if it's edgy. This one's for you, Albert. How are the large scale assessments graded? Does passing all the tests count as a grade 100%?
Yeah, I wouldn't think in the framework of a student. Of course, we think of assessments and tests as like a grade.
Graded.
Yeah, think of it more as a categorization of like I talked about debugging. You get a series of debugging. You don't need to get 100 out of 100. Like if you miss one, it's fine. And so if you get 100%, if you nail every question, yeah, like obviously you're going to advance to the next stage, but you're not necessarily graded on a 60, 70, 80, percent, A, B, C, or D. It's, there's different assessments that are evaluated differently. I can't get into all the details, but like there's also non-technical assessments that you'll take that assesses for like leadership and situational behavior. And so, there's a lot of commentary on our assessments that you could probably find online, but to just answer it very plainly, like, no, it's not graded on a scale.
And this longtime subscriber, Ojo4, keeps asking hidden test cases. I'm not sure what he means there. Does that mean, like, I assume it means something like if you get questions 1, 2, and 3 right, then you're given question 4, but if you miss 1, 2, and 3, you're done? I don't even know. I'm not sure that's what he means, and I'm not sure how our assessment... Does our assessment...
Yeah, we for obvious reasons, or if it's not obvious, it won't be a surprise. We change the questions quite a bit.
We change them frequently, and that's got to be... If you can't figure out why, go do some Google work.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the SAT, right? If people find the questions online, what we don't want bad actors out there. We don't want people trying to publish answers for the sake of cheating. But, we will publish, and we're starting to do this, where we have questions from a few years ago that we want to set up students up for success. So years ago, we would send a lot of Ethan's engineers, for instance, to go on campus to do mock interviews. Like, we would give you a question that we may really ask in an interview. And the spirit of that is we want to provide real-time feedback and coaching and set people up for success. And I think those are some of the things that we're thinking about with our online assessment. So think of it less as a gotcha and more about an assessment process that's what we're trying to be as scientific as possible, trying to remove as much bias as possible. I think scaling is just a happy coincidence. And so we've been able to leverage that, but we want to demystify and debunk like why we use assessments, and so but no, it's not graded on a scale like that.
Okay. I know the answer to one of these. Faruqi asked, do you guys read the code? Your code will get read.
Yeah.
So your code matters. The other question about hidden test cases, I now understand what it means. If you write an algorithm and there's some test cases in the tool, are there other test cases that aren't shown that get checked against the code? I don't know, and I don't think we'd say if we did. But look, here's the important thing. We want to hire people. We have thousands of jobs going begging. So this is not about tricking people. It's about finding people with the right skills. Have the right skills. We'd love to have you. All right, we'll take a couple more here. What are some of the best questions a new hire is asked during the interview process? So this is like when they're asking us things.
Yeah, that's probably a question for you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I have any good stories on the fly of unusual stuff. So good questions are always about the work environment, the expectations, what problems we're facing, how you can get started successfully. The new hire question during the interview process, the best one is like, how would I be judged on my first 30 days? Or what are my goals in the first 90 days? What would success look like in the first 90 days? Um, and I would say that's the best question I get is, hey, I want to come in and start strong. What should I focus on in my first 30, 60, 90 days? And we talk about a book here sometimes. What's that book, Dave? The 90-day book?
The first 90 days.
The first 90 days. That's a good book to read if you're wondering about this, of how to start a new job strong. Since we're near the end of the show, I'm going to take this next question quickly. I hope I answered that one. With a recession starting to become more and more of a possibility, how would you recommend students looking for entry-level roles prepare? I don't know, like macroeconomic circumstances. If I knew a recession was starting, that's good speculation. I'd probably be on Wall Street at a hedge fund. But how would you recommend, people get hired in recessions as well as in boom economies. There's always jobs going open for innumerable reasons. How I would prepare is the same thing I've been saying all show. Do good work, be able to show your work, build a network. I had to find jobs after the dot-com bubble, the first one. That's how I ended up at Amazon. Amazon was hiring, and it was still bad times, and it was a great opportunity. So, I don't know if there's any special recession prep.
No, I mean, not that I can think of.
Statistically,
Yeah.
what a lot of students do in that case is they go to grad school. They keep hiding in school and they wait it out in grad school. That's what actually happens.
I mean, Ethan and I have been at Amazon long enough to have recruited through a recession in 08, 09. I would say, and again, this is one point in time. I'm not,
Yeah.
and this was over 10 years ago now. We didn't change like our approach. Now our approach has changed since then, but the approach didn't change the year before or the year after.
Yep.
But yeah, no, it's I think there's understandably anxiety when students think about I'm in school and there's a recession, so will there be job opportunities? You hear terms like recession-proof companies. I'm not going to say that we are or aren't. But if there's job openings and there's 25 job openings, just prepare like you would for any job opportunity. There's one question that I want to make sure that I address, and it's, have you thought about utilizing Twitch for recruitment? Live streaming.
Well, that's the
seminars
next
or
question,
such?
so we'll just
Yeah.
roll it up there. Go ahead. I knew
Yeah.
the answer to that, so I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I love that question. We introduced that a year ago last March. We are scaling through Twitch, and so I'm happy to report that Twitch is one of the ways in which we reach out to students. We have a channel, Student Programs, on Twitch, and so we do live streaming, and then we record, and then you can check out our streams there as well.
What's the channel? Do you know?
Amazon Student Programs.
Very creative. Amazon loves literal names.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm just Ethan Evans, Amazon Student Programs. Yeah. So, do the resulting videos get put somewhere, or when they're done, like, can people go rewatch them, or do
they can rewatch them? Exactly.
Do they? Because Twitch rolls them off in 14 days. So I'm just wondering if they go.
I'll have to look into the particulars.
Yeah, all right.
Of where.
So, but I can help these guys stream. Ojo, we have links turned off. Send it to a moderator though, and they can repost the link if you've got it. So thank you. We're gonna call it as a night at this point. Thank you all. I will remind everyone, I'm going to be talking December 3rd at 6 p.m. I'll be back. We're going to do expert public speaking. And then Devin and I are plotting shows for mid-December, including network. question, the last question we're apparently going to take is there in chat. What's for dinner? Do you know?
It's turkey chili.
Turkey chili. All right, so we're starting Thanksgiving early. I love it. So we're going upstairs for turkey chili. Thank you all for coming out. I appreciate you so much. If you haven't joined our YouTube, please do. And of course, we appreciate you guys recommending us to anybody you think will benefit. Point them to our YouTube. Point them to our next stream where we're going to talk about how to be an expert public speaker. And come see me when I collaborate with Devin Nash, my good buddy. I appreciate the whole Nash Nation who hung out here. I see a lot of new people, and I really appreciate that. My thanks to my guest, Albert Kim. Hi, I'm Ethan Evans. I hope you've gotten a lot out of this show. To follow us on YouTube, please click the bell icon in the bottom left and subscribe. Also, you can find us live on Twitch, where we answer questions interactively. Further, we have a Discord community, where not only I, but other members of the community team up to answer your questions interactively. Hope you've enjoyed. Thank you.